Hey everyone, it's Riggin from 2 Casual, and today we're going to be learning how to play Kill Team Narrative. You might also hear this be called Spec Ops Campaigns, but they're just interchangeable, so you can do anything you like. But with that being said, we got a presentation for today, so I'm going to go ahead and shrink myself a little bit, and we'll go ahead and get right into it. Alright, so we got a little table of contents here. First thing is just what the heck is Kill Team Narrative. We're going to build our own kill team together. We're going to show how to level up operatives. We're going to show what happens when you get incapacitated. Your base of operations, which is all your sweet buffs. We're going to talk about Spec Op Missions, which are different from normal match play missions. The narrative play sequence, again, there's a few unique things here. And we're going to have a to-do list for your players. We made a little thing to just hand off and make sure all your players are ready for the games. And we're going to talk about how to organize our games. And then we're going to go into the Gallowdark Expedition. So we are going to do Into the Dark today. But all right, let's go ahead and get into it. We got, what is Kill Team Narrative? Kill Team Narrative is a different way to play the game. We got all sorts of whack and zany upgrades for our operatives. We do gang experience points and level up our models as we play the game. We have unique asymmetric missions like the one we see over here, where the defender and the attacker have a wildly different role, and sometimes they're skewed. And that's okay, because this narrative, it's just a lot of fun. You can tell stories like, why are all these elves on this orc planet trying to fight for resources? It's up to you to make that, and your players too. But most importantly, it's just laid back fun. So, going in to how to build your kill team, first we're going to start with our roster list. This is the original roster list, the one that you can find on the website. However, GW did make a digital app, which we'll get to in a sec, which is a super awesome way to build your kill team. First things first is we're going to fill out the roster list. So what you're going to do is you're going to fill out your roster with one valid kill team and no more operatives. So if you're playing the intercession squad, you should have 6 boys, and that's it. If a unit has options like a plasma gunner or a flamer, those are unique operatives, and they have a gun assigned to them. So if you want a plasma gun, you got a plasma gunner, and those operatives cannot change what gun they have. If you want a different gun, you have to buy a whole nother operative via Requisitions. Next up is our Dataslate. This is basically the big card for our team that keeps track of all our stuff. Here we get our requisition points, asset capacity, spec op logs. We'll get onto all this in a minute here. And then the things we won't get to are the fluffy stuff, because it's just fluff, right? So you got player name, that's your name. Your base of operations is just, it's a funny name for your base. Yeah. So let's go ahead. And we're looking at Datacards next. So the Datacards are a card you're going to make for every single operative on your kill team. So you fill it out, you're going to put the operative name, whatever the heck you want it to be, like Sergeant Johnson, the operative type, the sergeant, could be the leader, could be the psyker on your team, the sniper, the gunner, whatever. Battle honors and battle scars we'll get to in a sec, but the notes here are the other important thing. So you're going to know what weapons it has, because it can't change again. So if it's a gunner, you're going to write it has a plasma rifle and a close combat weapon, or whatever you got. Up here we have the link for the command roster, which is an awesome tool GW made for basically assembling your narrative kill team. So we'll go ahead and click on it. And so we can see here that here's a couple teams that I've already made, but we're going to go ahead and make a new one together. So we're going to go ahead and pick Intercessor Squad. We'll click Ready. And here we go. So first things first is we're going to select our 6 operatives. It's a 6-man kill team, so that's all we're going to select. So we'll pick our Intercessor Sergeant, and I'm just going to add the other 6 boys. Cool. So we got our operatives selected here. If you want, you can mess with their loadout. It's already set up to give you all the right, the viable possible options, which is really, really cool. You can click on the Show Spec Ops here if you want to fill it in with some narrative stuff. So we could say Captain John Man. Cool. Here is experience and the rest of tally. Those don't really matter at this very moment when you're first building your kill team, because it's all going to be at 0. Same for specialism and the rest of this. We'll just go ahead and click some numbers here, and we can fill out the rest of them if we want, but it's all going to be the same. So let's go ahead. So if we click on the next tab here, this is your kill team. So we got the roster, which is your list of boys, which could, when you recruit more boys, go above 6, all the way up to 20 different operatives. And those are your pool to select from. This next kill team tab is your actual amount of people that you're sending into a game. Really, I don't ever mess with this tab, so we can just ignore it for today, because you're just going to be bringing 6 boys into your game. The Spec Ops tab is where we get into the your base of operations. So we got our kill team name, the best boys. Naming them really orky things today. We got base of operations. Again, this is just the name of our base narrative, so we'll call it Fort Awesome. Yes, that's a cool name. The history, we were lost and lonely and had to fight 100 billion nids. That's my backstory. Cool. A quirk, like a wacky quirk about your boys. They don't like toast. Cool. That's all the narrative stuff. So now we get into the real meat of it. So the strategic assets are awesome, really powerful permanent buffs that your team has access to. The stash is all of our equipment. We do not get equipment right away in narrative. You have to buy it via requisition points. And then the Spec Ops log, which is what like grand mission your team is pursuing for. We'll get deeper into all those things in a little bit, but for now we can just pick a few. Cool, so I just filled this out with some arbitrary data. I'm going to go ahead and go to export. I'll put my name here. And now we have printable PDFs for our entire kill team. We don't have to write out a thing, and it's awesome. So I'll go ahead. I will click the download button for each of these 3 things, and I'll check my downloads here. And here we go. So we got our matched roster. This is got the name of Intercession Squad here. Here are all of our operatives. Captain John Man, if everyone else had a name, they'd have it there. And their loadouts. Next up, we have that narrative Dataslate card. This is really helpful for writing out your equipment as you acquire it or new stashes. Honestly, what I do is I print this piece of paper out. It has like 90% of the handwriting already done on it. And then I take a piece of pencil as I go through my games and start updating it with things that change to it. So if I'm getting more strategic assets or things like that. And then last up are the narrative data cards. So here's your cards for each of your boys. We do want to bring these to every single one of the games that we play because it's going to matter for tracking their experience points as the things come along or battle honors and battle scars as we get them. But that's about it for assembling your kill team. So let's go ahead and get back into the presentation here. So moving on to gaining experience. Kill team narrative really does play a lot like the base game. However, there are a few exceptions. Gaining experience is one of them. So here's how we do it. So if an operative incapacitates any amount of operatives in the battle, it gains 1 experience point. Note that this means that it's maximum once per game per operative. So if I get 2 kills on my gunner, he still only gets 1 experience point. And if an operative either completes a mission action or is controlling an objective marker that scores you victory points, you are going to get 1 experience on that operative. Once again, no matter how many victory points it scores you, it's still max 1 per game per operative. And these both stack. And up next is the TAC Ops, which do differ from the other two. So each TAC Op point you could possibly score is an opportunity for one of your models to score an experience point. So each time you score a victory point on a TAC Op card, you can delegate one of the operatives that participated in that TAC Op to score a experience point per point earned. So if you're using Hold Them Back, that's like one that your entire team is participating in. So you'll select one guy to earn 2 experience points or 2 guys to receive 1 experience each. If you're doing Headhunter, obviously the guy that killed them is going to get both experience points. So the theoretical maximum that any model could possibly receive in a game is 8, and then every other model could possibly get maximum 2 experience points in a single game. It is absolutely crazy if you get that much experience in a game, but it's possible. So super important, keep track of your games. Within every single game, I highly recommend bringing a piece of paper. And on that piece of paper, what you're going to want to do is write down whenever an operative gets a kill. So you're going to write like Plasma Gunner or Johnson, whatever you think works for you. Whenever he gets a kill, whenever he performs a mission action or scores a victory point, when he participates in a TAC Op, or when he dies. That way you can keep focus in your game. You can just make a quick note. And at the end of the game, we're going to tally up all the things that happened and make any changes that are necessary to your operatives, like leveling them up or doing casualty tests. But speaking of leveling up, next up we have battle honors. So when you get 6 experience points, you are going to get your first battle honor, which is basically an awesome buff. Here we have the table here, so you can see the 5 possible ranks and the experience required. At the time of getting your battle honor, you're also going to select a specialism. You can see these funny markings at the bottom of your card that have no purpose in match play. That's what they're here for. They're here for narrative play. So we have combat, which is the melee one, staunch, which is the tanky one, marksman, which is the shooting one, and recon, which is like the move fast and do objective one. So when you rank up, you're going to select a battle honor based on the single specialism that you chose, or if you chose a bespoke team, one of the ones available to your entire team. You can mix and match, so you could do one from marksman, one from your bespoke team, and then build it up, but you can't do like 2 from combat tree, and then 1 from the staunch tree. You're locked into that one specialism. Once you do that, you're going to note that on your character's card, and then also there's maybe a few cases in this game where you lose the experience points. It's pretty gosh darn rare, but it happens. If you happen to rank down, you can lose any battle honor of your choice. You don't have to do them in the order that you gained them in. All right, moving on, we have casualty tests. So if an operative was incapacitated in the battle, please write it down. It's going to be so important. And at the end of the battle, we're going to perform a casualty test on each incapacitated unit. So how we do that is we roll a d6, and if on a 2+, the passes test. Awesome. That operative that passed the 2+, can only score a maximum of 3 experience points in a game. But if it rolls a 1, we are going to get a battle scar. However, what's funny is experience is still gained as normal. So if you gained 8 experience points and you fail the test, you'll still get your 8 experience. But we do have to make the casualty test. But for each medic we have selected on our kill team, you may reroll 1 casualty test for your whole team. So medics are awesome in kill team narrative. They can really be a lifesaver and stop those casualty tests from happening. So next up is battle scars. So if you fail that casualty test with a 1, we're going to roll on the battle scar table, and this is going to be a lasting injury that's going to affect your operatives for the next few games. Or if they roll a 1, they're going to be slain. So we roll a d6. However, if you already have some battle scars on that operative, we're going to subtract 1 from the roll. So if I rolled a 2 for critical impairment, but I already have a battle scar, I'm going to get 1 for slain, and my operative is going to die. The role play behind that is like if they're beat up, and they still get hit even harder, that increases their chance of death. So we're going to write that on the character sheet, and they're going to be afflicted by that for their next games. But next up is recovery tests. So we do have opportunities for removing those battle scars. They're not permanent. At the end of each battle, every operative with a battle scar is going to attempt to be able to remove 1 of them, with the exception that you may not remove a battle scar that you had just earned in the battle you participated in. So what we're going to do is roll a d6, and we're going to add 1 to the tally for each battle that this operative did not participate in. So if he sits a battle out, he gets +1 to the roll. If he sits 2 battles out in a row, he gets +2 to the roll, etc. And on 5+, we're going to remove that battle scar of your choice, and again, it cannot be the one you just earned. So cool, those are operatives, but next we're going to get into the base of operations. And this is where we keep track of like all the team-wide super cool buffs that we get. So the first thing we need to talk about are requisitions. This is like kind of a currency in Kill Team narrative. So we start the game with 4 requisition points, and after we complete a game, we are going to generate a requisition point, win or lose, doesn't matter. You can only ever have 5 requisition points at a time, so do spend them, and then we'll spend those on requisitions. So the requisitions usually tell you when to use them. Oftentimes they're before or after a game, but sometimes they're in weird places. And something to note is if a requisition has a permanent effect, you're going to have to write it down on your either narrative Dataslate or on the operative that affects. So the weaponsmith requisition is an example of this. Once again, bespoke teams get unique everythings in all of these categories. So they got equipment, assets, requisitions, and battle honors. All right, so I can bring in this page here. We got all the requisitions that are available to us. You can see things like operative assigned, which is how we get more operatives on our data slate, equipment drop, which is how we get our equipment in this game, etc. So totally worth checking out. You're going to want to spend those points before your first game. Next up, we have strategic assets. These are huge permanent buffs that we get in every game. Really powerful. They are acquired via the asset acquired. So here we go. Asset acquired. Requisition. We're going to write these down our narrative data slate, so that big thing for our team. And we start off with an asset capacity of 2. So you can only get 2 of them to start the game. However, you do have opportunities to increase your asset capacity via accommodations later in the game. You can remove an asset from your narrative data slate at any time. You'll be able to add one in, so you could just swap those out if you see fit. However, it's still going to cost you that requisition point. You can see here we have an example of the engineering bay. So at the setup operative step, you can select one terrain feature within 6 inches of your drop zone, and until the end of the battle, all parts of that feature with the light trait have the heavy trait instead. There's some other really cool ones like getting free tactical ploys, but I'll leave you guys to look at the list of them. Moving on, we have equipment. So in Kill Team Narrative, we must buy our own equipment. This is done via the equipment drop requisition we can see here. And so what we do is we add the equipment to your stash on your narrative data slate. And in a battle, you're allowed to select from the equipment of your stash. However, you're still limited by the normal 10 equipment points. So even if you have like 15 points in your stash, you only get 10. Quantity matters. So if you want to come in with 2 virulent rounds, you're going to have to buy each of those via the thing. You can't use the same one and give it to all your operatives. If a piece of equipment has multiple costs, so for example, this belt feed right here, we see it costs 2, 3 in different situations. For the purposes of using the equipment drop requisition, it's always going to cost the lesser amount. With our narrative campaigns, we did implement a little bit of a house rule here. The equipment drop rule normally makes it really awkward to break down with like 3 cost equipments because you can only get one of those per 5-point drop. And if you want 3 of those on your team, it's going to be really awkward. So we made our own house rule about this, and we highly recommend using it in your games. It's a huge quality of life improvement. But basically, if you purchase the equipment drop requisition, any extra points carries over into the next equipment drop that you buy. So basically, you could start your game with 2 equipment drops and have your 10 points and be hunky-dory. Up next is rare equipment, which is like normal equipment, except super cool. So rare equipment are only acquired via Commendations or Spec Ops, with a few exceptions on a certain few narrative kill teams. But you have your options of picking up a ranged, melee, or team-specific rare equipment. In your stash, you may not have 2 of the same equipment ever, so if you come across an opportunity where you get duplicates, you must get a different one instead. So, when a rare equipment is upgrading a weapon, a single weapon can only be upgraded once per rare equipment. You can have 2 rare equipment on the same operative, they just must be modifying different things. In addition to that, rare equipment can be stacked with normal equipment, so you can get some seriously powerful combos if you find the right stuff. We have a couple examples down here. So we got the ranged equipment. So the autoloader gives, for 2 equipment points, it gives you the ceaseless special rule. This is like hella powerful to put on a plasma weapon because you're going to be rerolling those ones. Also, same thing, we got melee ones over here. So, moving on, we have Spec Ops, which is like your personal grand mission for Kill Team Narrative. This is something that you achieve over a series of multiple games. So what you're going to do is you're going to select one Spec Op and write it in your Spec Op log, you can see down here, on your narrative Dataslate. So this guy chose Secure District. So what we're going to do is we got the Secure District Spec Op mission here, and we're going to do Operation 1 first and complete it to, and see it to its end. So what it says is complete 5 games in which you scored victory points from the Protect Assets or Plant Banner TAC Op. And then after the game in which we complete all of Operation 1, in our next game, we can start Operation 2. So score points from the Central Control TAC Op. After we complete Operation 2, we get the Commendations, which is the sweet loot. So they get 3 requisition points, they can add an item of rare equipment, or increase their asset capacity by 1. These all have different missions to do and different rewards for them, so they're worth checking out for your team. But there's a few restrictions to keep in mind. After we complete a Spec Op, you must complete 2 other Spec Ops before you can come back to that first one and complete it again. You can abandon a Spec Op at any time you'd like to start a new one, so if you find that you're just completely dead stuck on it, you can wipe the slate and just start a brand new one. And here's an important rule. Unlike match play and Kill Team Narrative, you can select any TAC Ops you like. This is part of the narrative mission sequence. And so you are not restricted to the ones to your archetype. Do note that this doesn't mean you can mix archetypes, so I can't choose 2 from security and 2 from recon. I still have to only choose ones from security and from my faction one. But this lets you complete Spec Ops that would otherwise normally seem impossible. You'll notice if you look at your ones that are baked into your kill team, it'll offer you opportunities to complete TAC Ops that are literally not accessible to you. This is how you do it. So yeah, this is just an example of the Blitz TAC Op from the Orc kill team. More of the same, but we also have the Spec Ops bonus here. So you'll see at the end of missions, we have a couple of bonuses here. So here's an example mission. We got Reconnoiter Mission 1-1 from the Octarius set. Lots of cool fancy little rules, but we get to the Spec Ops campaign part of it. And you have your TAC Ops bonus. So if you're completing these TAC Ops, if you have the Recon one, if you score 3 or more victory points from the Recon TAC Ops during this mission, gain an additional requisition point. So cool, that's a neat little bonus you get. And then as far as your Spec Ops go, if you were undertaking the Breakout or Infiltrate the enemy Spec Op, at the end of the battle, if all 4 points were reconnoitered by your forces during the same turning point, so basically if you captured all 4 objectives, reduce by 1 the number of games required to complete that Spec Ops operation by 1, which basically means and make 2 ticks for your 5 games in for Operation 1. Cool little way to accelerate your progress towards your Spec Ops. Let's move on to the differences in the narrative play sequence. So here's the narrative play sequence. You can find it in your core rulebook or here on Wahapedia. It is for the most part exactly the same, but I do have the denoted differences here in the slide. So the first thing is reading the mission briefing. Each of these missions are asymmetric. They all have special rules, so it's pretty important to read them. Some of them have unique equipment, but read them with your partner. It's really important that you guys both understand the mission together and understand what you're doing. Do note that the attacker and defender all have their unique deployments, so we can see the defender has this big zone and the attacker has a small one, and they each have their own role in this mission. Moving on, we have the select kill team step. Mostly the same, except you're going to add up all of your battle honors and strategic assets for each player. And for every 2 less in that count, the player behind is going to get a bonus. So like if someone's doing really well in the campaign, this is kind of like a balancing act to make the player who's behind not so behind. So for every 2 less, they're going to get either a command point or 2 additional equipment points. And then the other thing is you can walk into these games with less than a full kill team. So if you had an operative die or you want to bench an operative and you don't have anybody to replace them, you'll actually come in with less than a full kill team. So that recruiting extra operatives is pretty important to have at least one so you have a little backup in your games. In step 8, the select TAC Ops step, we talked about this, but you can select from any archetype, not just the ones assigned to your kill team. But again, you can't mix and match, so if you're choosing security, you're stuck with security. In the select equipment step, you can only select items that are purchased into your stash. And then lastly, step 16, which is added to the narrative sequence, is the update Dataslate steps, where you update your Casualty Tests, experience, recovery, and etc. So we'll talk about that here in a bit. But we'll go ahead and go to the end of game sequence. So when a game is ended, hopefully you have that piece of paper where you've been writing things down, and together with your partner, we're going to update our data cards and our data slates. So the first thing we're going to do is take casualty tests. So every operative that died, you're going to roll that d6 and see if they rolled a 2+ and they live, or if they roll less than 1, they're going to have to roll a d6 and see which battle scar they're going to get. Next, we update their experience like we talked about. They're going to take the recovery tests. And then finally, we're going to update our spec ops for the operation. And then after that, you're going to post the results in chat. So hopefully you guys are using some sort of collective social media to keep track of your game. Discord is amazing for this. You can make a server, you can make a channel, you can make a thread. That's what we did. We used threads in our already existing server with a bunch of people in it, and that worked out really well. But whatever works for you guys. So you're going to post who won, tell any epic stories of what happened. Did you get outnumbered by 3 orcs at once and you defeated them all? Did you like run away with the objective but like die, but super cool thing happened? Whatever, take a couple sentences, take a paragraph, tell a story to the server. People love that stuff. And then lastly, take photos. These are your cool games. You have awesome models that you painted and hopefully some cool terrain. So take some photos of the action, maybe take a selfie and post it in the chat. Really cool. Like that's player involvement and that feels really good for everybody. So we talked about Discord for a second. We're going to talk about organizing our games now, which is super important for Kill Team Narrative. So something I highly recommend is selecting a campaign organizer, the guy who's in charge of it all. Campaign master, whatever you want to call him. They're going to set up some sort of channel or Discord server and make sure that every single player is in it. If they're not going to be able to talk to each other. And a lot of people on our campaigns didn't exactly know each other at first, so being in the same Discord server really helps that out. You're going to select a campaign length and pace. I highly recommend the 9 missions in the back of one of your books. So those are the shadow operation missions. Those are different from the critical operations, which are very mirrored match play missions that are supposed to be somewhat symmetrical. So yeah, anything in the back of any book is really great. Then you're going to pick a pace. So how frequently we're going to play our games. Do you want to play 1 game every other week? 2 games over 3 weeks? You got to find a pace that works for your group. I highly recommend doing a pace that allows for people to take weekends off. If you do 2 games over 3 weeks, that's going to give people a chance to just live life, go out of town, whatever, and just give them some breathing room. It's a really healthy way to play the game. But your organizer is going to announce blocks and matchings. So if you want to have 2 games over 3 weeks, you're going to announce the matchings for 2 games. So mission 1.1 and 1.2, you're going to say player X is going to fight player Y. and then you can announce 2 games at once. So you can do mission 1 and mission 2. And as far as match order goes, it really doesn't matter if you complete mission 2 before mission 1, unless you have some like special narrative reason for that. But really, if you're just playing the missions, go ahead. It really doesn't matter. As an organizer, you could totally throw your own narrative spin on this. You can give some backstory as to why they're arriving at this location or why 2 teams are fighting each other. Players can do this too. They'd be like, oh, I'm Space Marines and I think orcs are the worst, so I'm an orc hunter or whatever. Or you could be orcs just looking for a cool scrap. It's all the same. It's also okay to go narrative light on this. Really, I play narrative for the wacky zany rules. Some people love telling stories, but it's okay if you don't want to tell a super huge story and just enjoy narrative for the matchings and the extra missions and the really cool rules. So moving along, we're going to talk about creating the matchings as a campaign master. So here are the steps. I designed the system myself. I found it worked really great for our groups, and I welcome you to take it, modify it if you like, and make it your own. We're just going to go ahead and work through this system here, but if you're reading the slides at home, I got this written out for you. So first things we're going to do is we're going to get a list of all the players. So I fabricated a little list here. We got Cat Potato, Alexinator, Brotato Chip, etc. And we're going to randomly sort the names to make random pairings. So we're going to random.org, cool little RNG tool. We're just going to put everybody in there and randomize. So boom, we have our 13 players here. I'm going to go ahead and copy their names. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put them into a round robin match blanking system. This is going to make sure that all the players fight all the players. So it's a cool little tool. Here we have our round robin generator. So here we do the tournament name. So we're going to do the Octarius missions. You can call it whatever you like. The number of pools is 1. The number of teams is however many players you have. So if we have 13 players, cool. And I'm going to go ahead and fill out their names. Awesome, we got that filled out, and I'm going to click Generate Tournament, and this is going to give us our matchings. So, round 1, we'll have Cat Potato versus several kinds of soup. We'll have Alexinator versus Bouncy Castle, etc. So this is everyone fighting in Game 1. And we have a Krilzy with the buy round. We'll talk about buy rounds here in a minute. Same thing, so Mission 1.2 would be this matchup, Game 3 would be this matchup, etc. So these are your matchings for the weeks or 2 weeks, whatever pace you're going at. So basically you will take the mission, so here's Mission 3.1 Ambush, and then you'll just write the pairings. So here I was matched up with Cyward. We have this pairing down here too, etc. And so you'll just post those at your own pace. So getting back into it, we're going to talk about the buy rounds. So sometimes games get missed. What if a player doesn't have a partner? What if someone's partner doesn't show up, etc.? So you have 2 options for your players. One is to play a pickup game. So the player who originally missed the game is going to have full opportunity to play a game, get all the experience points, make spec op progress, etc. And then anybody can be the pickup partner. And they're just going to play the game. So they will not have the opportunity to score any extra experience points. That way they don't get ahead in the narrative sequence or with extra experience points. They're just going to be there to offer some resistance and a challenge for that player. Alternatively, sometimes life happens and you just need a buy round and you got to skip the game. So this is a system, it's not in the core rulebook, but it's a system that worked well for me and my players. So we give them a buy round. So each player completes the mission to full success. They're just granted a victory. Every one of their models gets only 1 experience point. And then we offered them a choice. Either they get 3 TAC ops worth of experience points to distribute against anyone on their roster, or they take the average number of TAC op points they scored from their previous games. And then recovery tests are taken as normal, as if you played the game, and a requisition point is scored as if you played the game. So basically, it's a free game. It's really friendly and generous. It's supposed to be. This is a narrative. It's supposed to feel good. But please, 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 as a player, let your campaign master and your fellow partner know as soon as possible that you can't make a game. Don't ghost them a day of. That's really hard on people. And if you give yourself advance notice, that's going to let people make plans. But cool, that's really the overview of the core rules, but we have some crazy facts here. So these are wacky questions that came up in our games that I feel like aren't too inherently obvious, so I'm going to go through them with you. Some missions do not have objective markers. How does this react with certain TAC ops or certain abilities? So the short answer is these are impossible to complete. So if you're doing the Eliminate Guards TAC op, and there's no objective markers on the match, so like Mission 1-1 in the Octarius set with Reconnoiter, there are no objective markers. There are objectives, but no objective markers. They're impossible to complete. Rules is written. Next question is, should we use the Spec Ops 2022 TAC ops and the updated rules for those? And the short answer is narrative was designed for the original rules. However, I highly recommend you still use the new rules. I think a lot of them are really good and healthy for the game. So coming to the campaign, you should discuss with your players which rule set you're going to be using and make sure everyone has all the right cards or things like that. If you don't have the new TAC Op cards, there's awesome online apps, which I'll get to here in a sec. But yeah, just make sure your players know what's up. But if you are using the new TAC Ops, it does get a little weird with the territory concept, the splitting the map halfway down. It's between both players. You guys should talk it out, and both of you understand exactly what the territory is. So just draw an arbitrary line between like your half of the board and your opponent's half of the board, whatever that means to you. So for a mission like this, you might draw like a V shape or something like that to the midway point. What if I lose too many operatives and want to start over? By all means, you can do that at any time you like. Just talk with your organizer, and you can start your kill team over. Because if you lose like 4 guys just by dumb luck in your first game, that's stinky. So, you know, let's be cool about it. Next question is some of these missions seem impossible to place correctly. This mission in particular, mission 1-3 Fuel Run, our players had the hardest time arranging this terrain. I couldn't tell you why, but it's just really weird for some reason. Do your best, work with your partner. I promise you, you'll get really close and it'll be good enough. But do note that if you're playing the Into the Dark version of some of these missions, sometimes the door placement, like you see here, is just wrong. They got it wrong. So don't worry about the orientation of the door. Just make sure that it's in the right like part of the map. So this side can be flipped either way, but just make sure the door is here in your deployment zone. More questions. This one pertains to the Intercession Squad, because this is a really popular kill team. Can they change their chapter tactics between games? And the answer is no. Rules as written when your roster is created, you are actually stuck with that for the entire campaign. Now, if you really want to change it, I would talk to your GM. You shouldn't be stuck in something that's unfun, but just talk to them and let you know that you'd like to change it. And don't like fix it for each game, you know, be honest, but you know, be cool. And then the big one is IDK what to do. Honestly, guys, I tell everyone, follow the rule of cool. If a rule makes something unfun, get rid of it, change it, and just have a good time. It's narrative. Don't take it too serious. But we want to know if you guys have any questions about Kill Team Narrative. Drop them in the comment below. We're always super happy to answer them, and we're always watching that comment section. Here I go to a helpful link section. We're going to be posting these slides in the comments below, so you'll have all these links too, and the slides as well. But we have a listing of the narrative rules that we all just went through. Yeah, the Crit Ops 2022 mission changes and TAC Op cards. We have the Octarius mission pack, but you can use any mission pack you like. The Into the Dark rules, which we are getting into the Dark here in a sec, so stay tuned. The roster creator, that awesome command roster from GW, and an online TAC Op tracker. If you don't have the cards, this thing is amazing. You come here, you can select from all of your TAC Ops. I can pick any ones I like and sort them. So if I want to do security, I choose the S3. I can go to my saved TAC Ops. I can hide them from my opponent, and then I can use this on my phone. It's super phone friendly. I could reveal them. Here's central control, and here is the scoring requirements. But back to the slides. Yeah, and so here is a player to-do list, something for every single player to do before the first game. We are going to make a roster of 1 valid kill team and no more. Highly recommend that command roster app. We are going to make a Dataslate card for your kill team. We're going to make unique data cards for each and every operative. We're going to spend those 4 requisition points. You start with 4, and we're going to bring a piece of paper to write things down for our game. And then once your pairings are announced by your campaign master, contact your partner, send them a message right away, and schedule that game. Play at your local game store or whatever you want to do, and yeah. So big thank you for checking in so far. We still got a little bit more to go, but this is the end of the core part, and we're getting into the dark part here in a second. But this is just a slide. We've got more vids on YouTube. You're probably watching this on YouTube. You can chat with us on our Discord. We started the Patreon, so if you want to see our awesome perks, we got like community voting for which kill teams we play for our battle reports. So we'd love if you guys come and check it out. Again, all these slides are down below, along with everything else. So moving along, we have the Gallowdark Expedition. So this is the Into the Dark version of Kill Team Narrative. There's quite a few differences here. So we are exploring a massive space hulk. There's like a scoring system to earn more rewards in this game. So let's go ahead and dive into the Gallowdark Expedition. Quick little table of contents. We're going over the new rules. Generating matchings is a little bit different in this version, so we'll go over that too. The Commendations and the extra twists. So fun little special rules you can slide in. For these slides, I added a CM or Campaign Master to the top. And these have special tasks for that person who's organizing your campaign. So if you're that person, keep an extra eye out for these slides in particular. So the first thing we want to talk about is the narrative data slate. Instead of a Spec Ops mission, we're going to be doing a Gallowdark Expedition. So we'll replace that here in our Spec Ops log. And then something else to note is a Gallowdark Expedition is considered a Spec Op for the purposes of any faction Spec Op rules. So if you have a rule that applies to that, cool. You're covered. So a Gallowdark Expedition is broken up into 3 equal length stages. And Commendations, which are like your sweet rewards, are given out at the end of each stage. And at the end of the 3rd stage, the campaign is over, and you could choose to either start a new one or end it there and have that be that. So the number of games and the length of each stage is arbitrary, but this tempo worked really great for us. So we did the 9 missions in the back of the Into the Dark book. These are the Shadow Operations missions pack, not the critical ones, the Shadow ones. These are the wacky, zany narrative ones that have like asymmetric deployment, like this mission here. There's 9 of them. So we took each stage 3 missions, and we did that over 4 weeks. So that way everybody had a weekend where they could just do whatever. And it was up to each player to determine when they wanted to do their games. So you assigned the mission, and over those 4 weeks, the players did their matchings. Moving along, we have the goal of the campaign. So the goal is to collect materials. That's what you guys are fighting over. You're actually fighting over something this time. Each match is assigned to a room in the big Gallowdark. And each room has a resource assigned to it that can be won at the end of the battle. And at the end of each block, the players who gather the most resources in any of the categories are going to earn extra commendations. So there's 4 types. There's the salvage, which is like ammunition and weapons, knowledge, which is investigation and study, resources, fuel, promethium, and then wild, which is any of the 3 above. All right, so in order to assign resources to the battles, basically what we're going to do is we're going to take a deck of cards, shuffle it, and then flip the card. And then depending on the suit, it's going to determine which resource it is. So if we have clubs here, we're going to get salvage. If we have a spade, we get knowledge, etc. And then wild can be any of the 3 above. And so we do that for each and every one of our match pairings. So even if they're all playing mission 1.1, they're all going to get unique resources each. So that way it throws a little bit of RNG into it. That way different players have a bit of a different chance at scoring different categories. However, I found this map to be completely useless. Even though it looks really cool, the thought of exploring like the map of the Gallowdark is like awesome. Mechanically, it doesn't provide much value. So I'm going to show you a really helpful thing that I did instead. So basically what I did is I made my own digital deck of cards. So here we have 1 through 10. Those are basically your normal cards. And then 11 and 12 and 13 are your face cards. So they are the caches. I had a really large game, so I doubled the size of the deck for my own usage, but it's all the same for however many games that you're going to be playing in your campaign. And then using RNG, I just shuffled them. And then this right here on the right is like my shuffled deck. So for the first pairing, I just flipped the first card off of this digital deck. So the first pairing would be the wild resource. And then for the second pairing in the first game, they're going for the resources material, and then back to wild materials, and then we've got resources, etc., and so on. And we just do this for every single game. So here is an example of me assigning the materials to the matches. So we were playing mission 1.2 in the Into the Dark packet airlocked. This 3 is like the original number 3 in the deck, but then I shuffled it, so number 3 became the first one drawn. Belfry of Skeletons, just a fun name that I assigned to the room. I did that to all the rooms with a fun little name generator. And then salvage was the resource assigned to the room. So Patriarch and myself are fighting for the salvage. Here in the next match, these 2 players are fighting for knowledge, and then these 2 players are fighting for the wild resource. And you just do that for every single matching in your campaign. So, players are going to go off and play their games, and at the end of the game, they're going to collect materials. So, every single player, after they play a game, is going to get 2 points of the location's material, or 1 point of any material they're choosing. So if I landed in the salvage room here, I can get 2 salvage, or I can get 1 knowledge. And then the winner gets 2 additional points. So if I was the winner of that match, I can get 4 salvage or 2 knowledge, or whatever. I can split it up in any way that I see fit. And then at the end of your match, you're going to post these and send them off to your campaign master, who will tally them. We didn't mention caches, which is kind of like a lucky room. If you flip the face card, that means the room is a cache. If it's a cache, players compare the points of each material that they have. So you can do this from the entire Gallowdark Expedition so far, or we did it from the current block only. It's really whatever your campaign master wants to do. And so this is what you do. If one player has less material than the other in 2 or more categories, the player that's behind gets an additional resource for completing the game. This kind of represents that player coming into the room first and starting to loot when the second player comes along and now there's a conflict and now they have to fight for real. So it's a good little way to play catch up if you happen to be behind in the moment. So at the end of each game, we're going to post our scores in Discord. These are going to be tracked by your campaign master, but here is a template for your players to have so that they can know what's posted in chat. So round 1, what round they played, so round 1.1, who played the game, so it was myself versus Mazramus, who the victor was, I won this game, and then you could post which TAC ops you scored. So this is we'll get into this in a sec, but these are extra ways to score Commendations. So Mazramus scored 3 faction TAC ops, and then he got 1 resource material. So he converted the material from salvage to resource. That's why he only has 1. I was playing the recon TAC ops, and I scored 6 points of it. And then with the materials, I won the game, so I got 4 salvage. As a campaign master, make it clear that when the end of the block is, so that all of your players can post their scores before the block ends. I had it that if the scores weren't posted, I didn't count them, because how could I? As a campaign master, though, send out reminders. Do that ping at everyone to make sure they, so that they have a reminder like a day or 2 before it ends. This is another campaign master slide, so we're going to tally up the scores as a campaign master. I found Microsoft Excel or whatever tool is super awesome for this, and so I just tallied them up and marked the highest scorings. Here I am. I had 3 wins in this single block. I did each one of these per block. I was going for knowledge points. I was also going for security TAC ops. So here's all the other random players and all the things that they were chasing. And then I took a highlighter and highlighted the highest scoring in each category. You'll notice that some of the players tied. So I'm doing most wins, most of each resource, and most of each archetype of TAC op. After you mark these here, at the end of the block, you will select the winners of accommodations. So the very core ones are whoever scored the most points in each of the materials. So the scavenger, the researcher, and the prospector are salvage, knowledge, and resources in kind. So they're going to score accommodation. And then we have the optional rule for extra accommodations. I highly recommend them in like campaigns with 10 plus players. That way, lots of people are getting accommodations. Because if like 3 out of 20 players get some, it's kind of rough. But it's narrative. It should feel good. We should give lots of prizes away. So we got the warlord. So who won the most games? The architect for the security TAC ops, and every other most scored TAC op in the game here. I made a couple of custom ones for our campaigns. You can add whatever custom ones you like to if you think you've got something narratively really cool. Love to hear in the comments down below if you got a special one. But we have rivals, so if any 2 players manage to tie, which I find is pretty rare, so I was like, that's cool. You guys are getting accommodation. They get an extra accommodation. And a lucky find. So I just randomly select a player every block who didn't already score accommodation, and they get a little block they're sent their way, and they score accommodation too. There is a rule that if 2 players tie in a category, whoever has the highest count of the other remaining resources wins the tie. However, if it's still a tie, both players win. However, it's just my recommendation that if they tie in the first place, both players should just win. That way, it feels good, and both players are getting prizes. So here's an example of the end of stage, posting who won the accommodations. So at the end of each stage or block, we're going to post who won the accommodations. Here's an example of how I did it, a reminder of how it works, and the accommodations you could score. And then here's Scavenger. So I scored Scavenger. Lycans was the researcher of this game, and Prospector was Ianth. Tomas, some of you guys might recognize that name. He got the most resources points. So, speaking of accommodations, here is the sweet loot we can earn at the end of each stage. So, at the end of each stage or block, every player that earned 1 or more material points is going to be able to choose accommodation from the following. They can either score a requisition point, a rare item, increase their asset capacity by 1, distribute 5 experience points across their data slate, or remove a battle scar from an operative. And then additionally, for each combination that you scored, you can choose an additional option from the list. However, each option must be different per block. So I could choose a requisition and a rare item, or increase my asset capacity and a rare item, which is probably the way to go, because those are the best ones. Cool. And then moving on, we have the Campaign Master's Edicts. These are like optional extra plot twists to make your games more spicy. Most of these I don't recommend for people just getting started. In fact, I only really recommend them for experienced players who really know what they're doing, with a couple exceptions. But here's the first one, is twists. So these are additional effects that can be placed on a room. So these could be added to certain matches randomly. So like myself and Tomas's game could have it, but for mission 1.1, but not somebody else. Or it could be entire stages of the campaign. So like everybody in mission 1.1 is going to get this effect. Totally up to you as a campaign master. So here's an example of one. We have low light. So during each turning point, the first time an operative makes a shooting attack, it gains a light token until the end of the turn. And then the second point is for an operative to be visible, it must have a light token or be within 6 inches of an operative. So this is like a low light situation where like somebody takes a shot and then it's like, oh heck, there's a muzzle flash in the darkness. Let's all shoot at it. So pretty cool narrative rule, actually, I think, but it does complicate things. So totally only recommend these for experienced players. If your players are struggling to get the rules right, I don't recommend adding even more crazy rules like these. But they can be fun, so something to check out. So next up is strategic exploration, and oh my god, this is kind of a really messy, crazy thing. This is where your map is actually going to come into place. So if you really want to do this, we are going to generate the map. You can go through the rules on this here. I'm not really going to talk too deep into this one because it takes a long time to explain very little. But basically, these are players moving across the map as they play the game and collecting resources in each of the rooms until they finally like clash into each other, and then they're going to have a battle. This adds a huge amount of complexity to your campaigns, and it's an insane amount of bookkeeping, and so I don't recommend this for new players at all, but if you really want to get into it, you can check it out. And then next up is extra accommodations. We already talked about these a little bit, but they're supposed to be for people who didn't win anything yet, but honestly, you can hand them out to everyone, so either you can play where nobody can get more than one extra accommodation, or they can stack. It's up to you. Highly recommend it if you have like 8+ players in your campaign. That way you're handing out more things. So we talked about those. We got the Warlord for people who won the most games, or the one for the security tac ops, etc. Again, here's some really super helpful links that you can use. The Into the Dark mission pack, the narrative rules for narrative play, and then again, we have the slides in the description below. And here is a super important thing, is some mission packs, it's easy to miss, have unique rules, such as the Into the Dark or the Shadow Vaults pack. So this one on the Into the Dark mission pack has the expeditionary teams. Players do not set up the barricades in the setup barricade steps. However, they can put them by other means, such as the fortify option in the scouting step. So these missions are not played with barricades, unlike your normal typical Into the Dark missions. So do make note of that. Remind all your players. This was a rule that was frequently missed in the beginning part of our campaign. But yeah, a little call out here. If you guys have any cool narrative rules that you really like in your campaigns, we'd love to hear them down in the comments below. One that I heard that I really liked is the tactical uplink is an insanely powerful strategic asset. It basically lets you have a free tactical ploy every turning point, which is really powerful to have just 4 free command point rerolls at a minimum. I heard one where it's you roll a die when you use it, and on a 4-up, then you get your command point back, and that's still really good even with that nerf. So yeah, put your favorites down below, along if you have any questions. We're here to answer questions. We're here to learn. We love that stuff. But big, huge thank you for you guys watching this video so far. I really am so happy that you guys are interested in narrative and really want to hear about your guys' games that you get into. If you guys want to post awesome pics on our Discord, we'd love to hear you and we'd love to see it. If you're looking for the slides, you already have our YouTube, we got Discord, and our Patreon down in the comments below. So thank you guys so much for watching. I've been Regan, you guys have been awesome, and I hope you have amazing games at your tables.